Hi everybody, welcome to this tutorial on SynthMaster 1. Today I would like to go through how to use LFOs. So I just launched SynthMaster 1. Let's initialize a preset. So let's click here and click on any preset. Okay, we have initialized the preset. First thing I like to highlight is that with LFO, of course, you enter into the domain of modulation, which is quite cool. But you don't always need modulation to actually create a fantastic tone or preset. For example, if I stick to the sawtooth waveform and I just change the unison oscillators to 16 and I act on the detunes, I can create quite unique presets and sounds, so just bear that in mind. As you start to add LFOs and modulation, things get more complicated, so you need to keep track where you're heading. So let's go back, let's reinitialize the preset again. And for the purpose of making useful what we are making more visible or audible what we're doing with LFO, let's change the algorithm to bend and also bend plus and minus. You will notice that, as explained in another tutorial, that the dial for tone and phase change depending on the algorithm that you set. So let's hear how the tone and phase change the sound. Okay, so you have an idea now of what the tone and phase dials change based on this algorithm. Let's stick to the sawtooth waveform as I just mentioned. So let's go into the LFO section. First thing to say is that there are three LFOs. So then there is LFO 1, 2 and 3. And the third one is what is referred as a vibrato LFO. So you see here a VLFO on the title. Let's go back to the first one. LFO can be triggered for each note, or can be each note, or they can be triggered only as one LFO. So they can be mono, or they can be also randomly triggered as well, or they can follow the global settings as defined under this settings tab. So that's something to bear in mind. So let's keep on poly. So let's simply apply an LFO to the tone here. And as you heard, when I change the tone down to the left side, the wave changed to a minimum, so you don't hear at all any sound. So let's ensure that we keep somewhere around there, and we click and hold on the LFO title. Then we start to move up. As you can see, the dial change. So when I'm on top of the tone dial, I release. And as you can see, you have a little picture here, a little like a progress bar, which indicates that I applied an LFO there and a modulation. And if I click on it as well, you can see now the selection to remove the modulation, and it will say that I have applied an LFO 1 modulation to the tone. As well, if you go to the modulation metrics tab, you can see now that on the first modulation settings, you have as source the LFO1 and as target the oscillator tone. Okay, that is what we establish here with a drag and drop. So let's see it. As you can hear, it's moving up and down. You can see the little dot here moving up and down from where the dial is. If we click bipolar, it will follow up and down the sine waveform, and the effect is pretty clear. It will go up and down, so positive and negative, therefore it will move to the right or to the left of that dial. Okay. If you change the volume on the LFO, what will happen is the waveform influence will diminish, and therefore the movement here will be smaller. So just remember, if you want to emphasize the modulation, increase the volume, of course, but then you need to pay attention where the dial is pointing, because if it's too close, for example, to the right side, it will not have a great effect when on the positive sign of the sine waveform. Of course, we can change the speed. We can introduce some noise. See what happens. Look at the picture here. So we have introduced noise. You should be able to see it. It's very small, but we have introduced noise in the waveform. As well, what we can do, we can act on sample and hold. So look what happens. I'm just changing the samples on the waveform. Okay. And then we'll change, of course, the characteristic of modulation, because you have less samples. Okay, so let's reduce sample hold to a minimum. The other thing you can do is, if you sync and enable the sync option, then you can apply the 2 multiplier. The first one, which at the moment is set to ×1, very slow there, and let's increase the speed as well. You can make it even slower, ×1.5, or you can go for triplet. Or you can apply the second multiplier. So let's go back ×1 there for the second multiplier, and the first multiplier here you can select, for example, ×2 to double the speed. Of course, these are synchronized ×1/4, and so on. Let's reduce the volume. You can apply an attack, which can be quite handy. So it will delay how quickly the modulation is applied to the tone. Pay attention how the needle moves, the little dot, sorry, in the dial moves. So there is a bit of a pause at the beginning, and then it starts to oscillate based on the level of attack that you have applied here. You can change the phase, of course. And let's apply a second LFO. So let's click on number 2, and let's apply this one to the phase. Here we go. Let's keep it on the positive, so the dial is all to the left, and let's click play. Let's change the speed. And again, if I go to the modulation metrics tab, I have a second LFO here as a source applied to the target, the oscillator 1 phase. Okay. There are some LFOs which are hard-coded. So for example, if I click on the fine dial, you will see there is a modulation already applied, and this is linked to the vibrato LFO, which is the third LFO here. The intensity of this is established by the vibrato. So pay attention to the fine dial as I change the vibrato. And of course, I can change the speed now of the vibrato LFO to influence that fine dial again. And the attack as well. Okay, I'm going to stop here for this part 1 on modulation. See you next time. Bye.